You're listening to On the Move with Maki. I'm your host, Makisha Noel, or Maki for short. The goal of this podcast is to elevate the stories of diverse, multi-passionate creators in and outside of the marketing and advertising industry. They are the ones who stay ahead of the curve in this ever-evolving world. So, all episodes will provide listeners with the tools to help make decisions in their creative journeys while highlighting the trends shaping the internet and real life. Excited to have you here. Come on in.
Hello. Wow. It's been a minute. Since I've been in the studio, since I've been here having these amazing conversations with creators, Black and brown movers and shakers. It's really been a minute, y'all. It's really the end of 2022. And I want to insert an applause here because we made it. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube or you're listening on Apple or Spotify or wherever you tune into your podcast, you made it to the end of the year. Wow. And I'm so grateful that you've been following along the journey since I launched On the Move with Maki. And in January, on January 12th specifically of this year, where I wanted to have conversations with your favorite creators, movers and shakers, those who are just putting greatness out in the world and using their gifts for the glory of God. That's how I see it. But also because they're passionate about storytelling and community building and elevating our communities. So, y'all, I need to put my phone on silent because this is where we are. Let me go ahead and do that because I already hear some ringing. But, y'all, I wanted to dedicate this episode of On the Move with Maki to actually go over my year because you've been following along for most of the year. And then there was a period where I wasn't posting. And then there was a period where, we'll get to all those details. But 2022 was a hell of a year. This year trained me. But this was also the year that I experienced so many highs, but also many lows. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break up this podcast into a part 1 and a part 2 because I can talk forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And we're not going to do that because I'm very conscious of the time that you have. But I also know that what's probably happening is maybe you're driving to your homegirl's house now. Maybe you're washing dishes. Maybe you are just relaxing and wanting to turn on something to, inspire you for 2023. I'm very conscious that that's what might be happening right now. And so I'm going to give it to you good as to what's been going on in my life. Right? So, okay. I literally have 10 things listed out of highs and lows I experienced this year. I hope that what you receive from this is that you are heard, that you are seen, that you are not alone in your creative journey, and that we all go through it. And we're all living different lives that we can only really get a peek into when it comes on social or through our podcast. But I hope that you're able to pick up something from my year and see how I was inspired to create and see how in some ways I was inspired to kind of slow down a little bit. All right. So the 5 things that we're going to talk about on this episode today for part 1 is the fact that I launched On the Move with Maki this year. Let's start with that, number 1. I launched On the Move with Maki, a podcast that has been a long time in the making. I also entered, we're going to talk about that, number 2. I entered the last year of my 20s. Yes. There's a lot of folks running around here that think I'm 24, 25. Look, I remember the last time I felt 24, 25, y'all. I'm in my last year of my 20s. What? It's crazy. Number 3, I'm going to talk about how I spoke at Black Equity Con in Miami in June of 2022. Number 4, I am going to talk about how I traveled immensely. And y'all, I need some water because your girl's throat is already dry from this past 5 minutes of recording. Okay, hold on. All right. And last but not least, what I'm going to talk about in part 1 is, let's put this up here. The fact that I did press at the BET Awards in LA. And that was actually my first time in LA, which was super, super dope, but we'll get into it. All right. So let's go ahead and start from the top of what On the Move with Maki. Because look, y'all are on the move with me the whole year. So let's go ahead and start with how I launched On the Move with Maki this year. So I started this podcast, if you've been listening to every episode, hopefully, is that because I love community. I love telling Black and brown stories. And for the creators, movers and shakers who need inspiration, who need to know that they aren't alone on this journey. I've been speaking for over 10 years, y'all. I'm going to do a little pause right there. I've been speaking for over 10 years. Before it was cool to post about it on social media. Yes. I think the first time that I really started speaking, besides being active in church as a child, but when I was in high school. That was so long ago. But I remember when I started speaking because I became the lieutenant governor of Division 25A of Key Club International, which is a service-based organization that is also student-led. My sisters love to make fun of me because they call it the Geek Club. I don't care. I live a life of service. And so becoming lieutenant governor was huge for me because that's when I learned how to write my first speech. Shout out to Mr. Jeffrey Burson, who has been my mentor along the journey. This is, and he probably not gonna hear this podcast, so it's okay if I say this. He is an old white man who's been investing in communities for years and years and years in Kiwanis International, Key Club, Builders Club, all the clubs, and he has been a mentor to countless youth within the Miami community, and I think in New York as well. And so he really pushed me to do well when I became lieutenant governor. I was planning events for 7 schools: North Miami Beach, Miami Country Day, Alonzo Tracy Morning School, all the schools within that division. I was writing newsletters. So I was writing at 17, 18 years old, officially, for other people to see when I was doing that. And I also learned how to host and how to bring people together and how to convince them that this is the right work to do by investing and doing volunteer service within the community. And so it's been a long time that I've been speaking, but I made it official a few years ago. And it was really in 2018 that I really came out as a creative. And I didn't know that this path was even possible. I didn't know that I can create for a living. And although I'm not doing all of this work full time. So I'm just letting y'all know we're going to be pretty vulnerable within this podcast, because there's been a lot of lessons I've learned since I launched my brand officially in 2018. Right. So I'm not a full-time, technically, well, let's say, in the work that I do within my industry, I do creative work. But in terms of speaking and hosting and doing my podcast, this is not a full-time gig yet, y'all. Bills still need to be paid, y'all. So the money ain't flowing yet, y'all. So I'll be honest with y'all. That's what it is. And so what's so crazy is that this podcast, On the Move with Maki, not in this full version that it is now, but the essence of bringing Black and brown folks together and telling their stories, it's been an idea since 2018, since my DC days. And I lived in DC for 2.5 years, and then I moved back to Miami. Okay, so let me also let y'all know that the way I want to break this down is that I'm going to let y'all know what was accomplished, what was the high this year, and then also a lesson that I took from it, because what is a mess if it doesn't become a message? Come on, somebody. See, I'm telling you, I'm bringing y'all to church. What is a life if there are no lessons? And so I definitely wanted to talk through the lessons that I've learned over this year, based on the things that I put out. So the lesson for this, when I launched On the Move with Maki, is that all that I have is already within me. All that I have is already in me. And I also want you to say that to yourself. All that you have is already within you. Everything that you can dream of, you are able to dream it because it's already in your heart. It is already within your skill set, even if it's on a basic level. You already have it, the fact that you're able to dream it. And so that's the reason, that's a huge lesson that I came out of when I launched this podcast. I realized that God has blessed me with the gift of being multidisciplined. And so when it came to launching this podcast, I had to pull myself up from the bootstraps and created whatever cover art was needed for all my guests. And for even now, if you can see this here, this is very, very imperfect. But I had to do what I had to do. I'm the one that booked my guests. I wrote my podcast descriptions. I set up all the tech. I bought the devices that was needed to even get this record. Like, a lot went into this, but I learned that I already had every single thing I needed to launch this podcast, and I was being too scared for too long for very little reason. All right, congratulations. I launched On the Move with Maki. Clap, 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 clap it up, clap it up, clap it up. A second hive that I want to, you know what? Let's actually call this roses and thorns, because this is how I did it when I did Strong Women, Strong Girls. And so let me actually kind of frame it that way, because when I say highs and lows, you know, low is not technically a low. I mean, it is a low, but let's call it a thorn, because I don't like that. Let's call it, because we know who likes thorns. None of us do, right? But there's a lesson in all of it. So number 2 of how my year went, I entered the last year of my 20s. I would say my 20s were the ghetto. And for those who are listening who are not in tune with like what I mean, it wasn't literally ghetto, y'all. My 20s were, or have been, because I'm not 30 yet, a time of exploration of self and of life, relationship building, travel, and we're going to get to that as well. Super incredible. But here's the thing. I remember when I was in high school, I thought that phase of my life would never, ever, ever be over. I said, wow, is high school, has it been 10 years? Am I still here? What? But every single stage of our lives, we tend to question why something is or why something isn't. But now, here I am in my last a few months, because I'm in Aquarius, the last few months of my 20s. I couldn't be more excited for my 30s. And here's the thing. I think this conversation of my 20s deserves its own episode, really and truly. And I will do that. So I'm going to make that promise to myself, and y'all going to hold me accountable, right? So like when y'all listen to this episode, make sure y'all hold me accountable. The goal is for me to do a full-blown episode of my 20s. But that is incredible coming into my last year at 29. I'll say this. I learned that in my 20s that everything is beautiful in its time. Anything that's meant to be, anything that is meant for you will happen in the time that's meant to happen. That nothing you force is ever right for you. If you have to force it and squeeze it and push it to make it happen, you might have to double check with that. You might have to circle back on that one. I'm going to let you know that right now, that nothing that you force is ever for you, and maybe not right for you. I also learned that I have to be patient with myself, that I can have it all, but not at once. That's something that I learned from forever First Lady Michelle Obama. That's something that my best friend and I were also talking about last night or yesterday over brunch, is that we can have it all, but not all at once. And it took me a long time to get to that point. But as we know, everyone is working on different times. But it's hard to kind of really remember that and hold on to that when you've grown up in a microwave generation. I'm going to say it. I'm a millennial, and I'm okay to say that about my generation, that we feel like things have to be instant. For example, Instagram is, it's easy to get that instant gratification. I don't even have to describe it. It's easy to get that instant gratification when you post on social, when there's a response or reaction that's expected. It looks like everyone has glowed up over a short period of time, and we don't realize that no one is really an overnight success, that things take time. Things take time. Yes. I'm going to raise my voice a little bit because this is for me. It's for you too. Yes, please receive it. But this is also for me. I'm preaching to the choir. Listen, things take time. And that had to be breaking news for me. Siam, chichima. This video really kills me. Chichima, kwang, kwang, Breaking news. Things take time. Let that sit in your spirit. Let that sizzle in your spirit. Like what's his name used to say. Another thing that happened within my last year in my 20s, which was a game changer for me, was I started therapy. Technically, I started therapy in October 2021, and I finished those therapy sessions in around my 29th birthday in February of this year, because my therapist was like, you know what, Makisha? Or Maki. She started calling me Maki. It's very new to have people call me Maki, besides my friends and family. She said, you know what, Maki? I think you have the tools to continue without me. I said, impossible. Impossible. Me? How, Sway? In what world? How? How can I continue to live my life without you? But my therapist dead ass looked me in my eyes and told me that I was good. Well, not completely, but I had the tools to continue. And I wish I started therapy younger, but we're not going to do the whole shoulda, woulda, coulda thing, because like we said, is that everything is beautiful in its time. So therapy, especially over this last year, really helped me to release control of the things I have no responsibility for, and to turn inward and to control the things that I can. I'm going to say that again, because that might have been a gem, but I'm not so sure. So let's just drop it again, because this is something that really impacted me, is that therapy really helped me to release control. I know y'all could just rewind this. I'm going to still say it again, though, for emphasis. Therapy really helped me to release control of the things I have no responsibility for, of the things I can't control, of the things that have nothing to do with me, because my name is Bennett and I ain't in it. Therapy helped me to release all those things and to turn inward to control the things that I can, on top of other things. But guess what? We're going to talk about that more when I have that dedicated episode to my 20s, and we really going to dive in. So that's a huge lesson I took away from being in therapy this year. Number 3, I spoke at Black Equity Con in Miami. Oh my God. Such a powerful experience. So since 2018, because for those who don't know what Black Equity Con is, the founders have, since 2018, brought together thousands of diverse creators and entrepreneurs to experience a life-changing moments through mentorship, connections, and experiences that has birthed $1 million businesses. I've been following these entrepreneurs for years, and before they hit their first mill, before they hit their first 2 mil, they were grinding, and it's been years in the making. And so in 2018, when I got to meet all those creators, this was back in my DC days. For those who remember the DC era, I guess we'll call her. We'll call her the DC era, when I lived there for 2.5 years. I think these creators have been working mad hard over the years. And so in 2018, I was just an attendee of when it was called Build Your Own Brand Retreat, BYOB. For those who have heard of it, it's not, what's it called? Bring Your Own Beer, or Bring Your Own, whatever it's called. This was Build Your Own Brand. And this is when I was trying to find that clarity around what it meant to be a creative. So I had moved to DC the year prior, before the actual conference, and I was experiencing massive, uncomfortable growth in my personal life, but also in somewhat in my professional life as well. But mainly, I came to terms with so many things from within when I moved out of my hometown, right? So I had moments where I had to be completely silent. I had moments where I was forced to be still. But the thing is, looking back on it is when I realized the benefits and the necessity of being still. Because in a moment, I was like, what the hell is going on? I know I had just left Miami to come live in this city and to be struggling emotionally, financially, all the things. And mind you, yes, okay, I was 24. But like I said, I grew up in the microwave generation. I go on social and I see that folks have made it. And so I'm like, why isn't this happening fast for me? Like, I'm I'm who I am. You know, I have confidence in myself. You know, I have desire. I have passion. Why aren't things just appearing in front of me? Says every millennial, right? Like, until you actually learn the lesson, right? And so I realized that I needed to be still, even though I was forced to be still. I experienced clarity for the direction I needed to go because I slowed down. I got quiet, right? I think it's easy to get stuck in all the noise and to get stuck because of the conversation that's happening on social, because we're out having a good time with our girls at brunch, you know, because we're frustrated at work. It's hard to have moments to slow down and really think about what we need and to think about what we want. And so I took so much from that. All right. So we're talking about Black Equity Con, but I really started to go in another direction. I had to catch myself. We're going to talk about that on that other episode. But that was the same year. Let me say, I really went off on a tangent. That was the same year that I met the Pollyanna Reed on Instagram. Love her so much. And from meeting on Instagram, we then met in person, I think in 2018 or 2019. I'm trying to remember, but built a friendship over the years. And so fast forward to 2022, she hits me up and she's like, hey girl, let me actually explain who Pollyanna Reed is if you don't already know who this GOAT is. She is a senior contributor at Forbes magazine, Forbes Women. Actually, let me get that correct because she's gonna be hot if I don't get that right. She's gonna let me know what it is, what it ain't. Pollyanna is a senior writer at Forbes. She's also a celebrity ghostwriter. Find her on Instagram. Find her on YouTube. Find her on her website where she tells you how to pitch to the media, where she tells you how to tell your story, how to be a boss in your own lane. She is the one to hear and know and to fall in love with because she is really fully living in her purpose. So Pollyanna, let me give you your flowers, girl. I was tripping when I said Forbes magazine. I was tripping. But we here. Okay. So she hits me up and she's like, hey, I'm putting your name forward for one of the panels at Black Equity Con. I'm like, hold up. All right. Hell yeah. Thank you. Wow. One, I was so blown away because that's a big stage. But two, I was just in the audience in 2018. If we could like flashback to my DC era, in 2018, I was in the audience meeting and networking with people, and really trying to figure myself out. Sip of water because it's a lot. Hopefully my makeup doesn't look crazy. Not my makeup, my lipstick. Because I'm sitting here talking about in a minute, but we're gonna get that fixed, right? So she hits me up and she says this, and I'm shook. It's a big stage. I was just in the audience. I was just the one trying to find an opportunity in 2018, right? But what I realized is that when you bet on yourself, when you invest in your gifts, doors open. Your name is said in rooms you don't have access to yet, right? Because you bet on yourself. Your name is being said in rooms you do not have access to yet. Opportunities are designed with you in mind. So here's the lesson. The lesson I learned from this is that your gift will make room for you. And this is definitely something you heard before. This is definitely something the Instagram gurus have said, and the people who really do believe it, is that your gifts will make room for you. Makisha Noel, your gifts will make room for you. I'm telling you now. But what I hated to admit publicly at the time was that I did not have stuff figured out. In 2018, who had stuff? There are folks on this planet with 7.2 billion people who had to figure out. I was not one of them. I was not one of them. And so I originally, when I came out the gate with my creativity and my brand, I took a course that taught me how to package my skill set, but I did not have every piece of my life and every piece of my business together. No one does. But there was a lot I really did not understand. And there was a lot that I was not willing to admit that I didn't understand. But what I did have, because I think it's easy to focus on the deficit, it's easy to focus on the lack, it's easy to focus on what's not there. But I realized, especially this year, that I need to focus on what I do have. And so that's what I did. I doubled down on what my gifts were. So I decided I'm going to do this. I was researching events that align with my passions, those being 3 things, among others. But Black women, us, me, because Black women matter, Black women, creativity, and entrepreneurship are the things I was passionate about at the time and still am passionate even now. So from DC, I would take the bus to Philly, to Boston, to New York City to speak, build relationships, and most importantly, to learn. I sat on those long ass bus rides and flights so that I can learn. And so because I did that to learn, to double down on what I was good at and double down on the things that I wanted, people recognize that. And so she hit me up and said, Black Equity Con, your name is on it, sis. Let's get it going. And that was amazing. So I'm also going to link the recap video with you guys so you guys can like see what that experience was about. Number four, because I'm going way over time, right? I'm like 1 minute over time. So I wanted this episode to be 30 minutes, but here we are. Fourth thing that, I experienced this year, what my 2022 looked like, is that I traveled immensely. Y'all, your girl spent a coin this year. Do you hear me? And this one is more on the personal front because, I think you kind of catch glimpses of like my personal life and experiences, maybe on Insta stories or like on the gram, on the feed. But a coin was spent, right? But all of it was spent on celebrating people that I love, celebrating people that I admire. Like it was lit. So also June this year was the first time that I went to LA this year, and after that I went 3 more times, and we'll talk about what I did in LA when I went, but I went to Turks this year. It was for my girl's 30th birthday. Shout out to you, Kara. Fabulous birthday weekend in Turks and Caicos. I cannot wait to go again, whether it be by myself or with my girls. Like phenomenal trip, had a great time. Also went to Cabo for the first time, Cabo San Lucas in Mexico. It was my sister-in-law's bachelorette weekend. That was fabulous, luxurious. Oh, let me also say this. I don't really say like, oh, soft life. I think we hear it enough. Like we know what soft life is. But sometimes I just hate the labels. I think that's what it is. But this year was like high-key soft life. This year, I would say in my 29th year of living is when I stayed at a villa. Actually, have I stayed at a villa before? I'm not sure. But I stayed at a villa, 3 times this year? So I'm like, God done really elevated your girl. What is going on? So Turks, we were at this beautiful villa. It was a walk away from the beach, I believe. Yes, it was. It was a walk away from the beach. The view was absolutely beautiful. We all had our own private areas. The excursions were dope. Oh my gosh. I'm going to dedicate that. Listen, when I'm talking about my 20s, I'm gonna dedicate that episode to talking about just all of that, because I really want to get y'all through what 2022 looked like, because we're running on limited time. Okay, so we'll get back to it. But my sister-in-law's bachelorette weekend was in Cabo. Congratulations, Sakina. I love you. Welcome to the family. Hopefully she listens to this episode and she's happy that I mentioned her name, because you know what I'm saying. And then we also went to Barcelona, in Spain for Sakina and David's wedding, my brother. And y'all, I will not begin to talk about the drama that this airline put me through when I'm still trying to go overseas to just celebrate my brother and sister. I will not talk about the drama. I will not have it. I will not relive that. But that was tough. I think the pictures looked cute, but that was a tough time, y'all. But I just love that, I was still able to be as present as I could be for the people that I love. So your girl traveled a lot. It was a lot on the personal front, definitely on the professional front as well. I'll dedicate an episode to that. But the lesson is that I had to realize that to be present in celebrating the people around me in a world where there's always work, and even more work, and more investment in self. It really feels hard to pull away and to give people their flowers. But this year, boy, I celebrated. I got turned. So this year was great on the traveling end. Not gonna cap. It was amazing. Last but not least, y'all, I did press at the BET Awards in LA. I'm still just mind blown from that whole experience. I'm just so shook. It was amazing. So we all know what the BET Award is. It's a celebration of culture. It's culture's biggest night. Y'all are already aware. But I think what's so funny when I received this, the email, I was on stage at Black Equity Con, right? And I was like, speaking. And when I got off stage, I checked my email and it's like, I received an email from the corporate communications team from BET, and they're like, hey, we love for you to apply to do press at the awards. And I was like, okay, me? I mean, I'm not like a publicist or anything, but okay, I'm in the communication space, obviously, being that I'm in marketing and advertising, it all definitely plays a role, but I don't know half a thing about PR. So I reached out to my friend, and I was like, hey girl, like, you're a publicist, you get it, you get what this is about, like, what do you think do you think the opportunity would be worth it? Excuse me. Because, like, after looking at, like, what the details were when it came to, I'm really trying to choose my words carefully. When it came to the details of, like, actually doing the event, if we think about the bag, I realized it wasn't about the bag. No, it wasn't about the bag. And so I'm going to get straight to the lessons that it's not always about the bag. It really isn't. It turns out that when I did the BET Awards, I learned that the majority of the people who were brought in were actually PR leaders in their own space. But I was one of the ones that didn't touch PR, but it was pivotal because I was the talent. I was talent in a room full of PR professionals. And you got to think about the spaces that you are in. Although it may not make sense as to why you're there initially, but it became clear that this opportunity, I was selected for this opportunity to do press on that red carpet around the people that were there because of the work that I put in, right? Because of the personal brand that I've created over the years, right? Because I was visible to the right people. And obviously you want to do well, you want to do good to people. Actually, I don't even know why I was selected, but I think those are all the reasons. And obviously because God had ordained that moment for me and for the people that were there. And so it was great being in that space. Essentially what I did was I guided celebrities to the different media outlets that were there. So Complex, E Entertainment, who else was there? Revolt was there. Of course, BET was there as well. So many media outlets that was there to just interview celebrities and get their opinions on different things. So who did I work with? The first person that walked on the carpet was what's his name? What's his name? Oh my gosh, I completely forgot his name. But the other people that I worked with was French Montana, Taraji P. Henson. I was near Idris Elba. Yes, he is as tall and fine in person as he is online. Absolutely, yes. I did not walk him down the carpet, but I was very close to him. Daniel Kaluuya, same as well. Who else? Did I already say the City Girls? The City Girls are lit. But that was super dope, just kind of walking them and talking to them a little bit and just kind of hearing their answers to different questions about why they do the work that they do. But it was really dope. Shout out to Erica Knox. Really appreciate you, girl, for, just kind of setting that up and creating this opportunity. So, y'all, this year was really lit. Like, technically, there are, at the time of this recording, 2 weeks left in the year of our Lord, 2022. And so I want to thank you for following me along this journey, because I'm going to have a part 2 where I talk about the rest of my 2022. But I hope you're able to pick up some lessons, pick up some things. You know what I'm saying? Grab your bag and put some gems in your bag after learning how I experienced 2022. So let's kind of go over that again, because, summaries are a girl's best friend, right? I launched On the Move with Maki this year. I entered the last year of my 20s. I spoke at Black Equity Con in Miami. I traveled immensely, and I did press at the BET Awards, and it was dope, y'all. So thank you for following along. Leave some reviews in the comments. Let me know if your room, oh Lord. Let me know if your year was just as amazing. Let me know if you learned as many lessons as I did, because Lord, I'm about to figure out what is 2023 gonna look like, because I'm not gonna be one of your soldiers. Like, come on, your girl needs some ease. But as you can hear, there were a lot of beautiful experiences this year. So y'all, on the move with Maki, I appreciate you. Check out part 2 so you can hear how the rest of my year went. I'm gonna see y'all next time.